All right, welcome to another episode of The Sweet Spot, the official podcast of the International Association of Pickleball Facilities. And got a great conversation for you today. Brandon Mackie, founder of Pickleheads, which for those of us who play pickleball, we've been using for years, and it's fun to see it grow. And Brandon, great to have you with us. Thank you for supporting the association, first of all. And first and foremost, let's get the news out of the way. Congratulations. Big news that you had this week. Tell everybody about the big funding round and what that means to Pickleheads.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, David, thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to dive in. And in case anyone missed it, the news is out. We raised a $2.5 million seed round. It was led by a VC out of Atlanta named Overline. We're an Atlanta-based company. I'm from the Southeast originally. And we added a lot of strategic angel investors, a lot of folks in pickleball, in the sports tech world. And it's really going to allow us to double down and grow Pickleheads, hopefully into the number one pickleball app far and away, not only in the US, but all across the globe. So excited to dive into some of our big plans for the year.
And Brandon, for those who don't know Pickleheads or have not had a chance to explore it, use it, tell everybody just in a nutshell, what is Pickleheads? What do you do? Who do you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So people have described us as the search engine for pickleball. I think that's a pretty good analogy. Folks come to our site looking for a court, looking for a game, a group to join, a lesson. And a lot of folks know us as the go-to court finder. We're the official court and game finder of USA Pickleball, and that's great. We hear from people all the time, hey, I'm in Florida, I found a court on your site. But what a lot of people don't realize is Pickleheads today, here in 2025, is actually evolved into a complete platform that can power rec play. You can collect scores for Duper, you can run round robins, you can even collect payments, you could run a whole pickleball business on top of Pickleheads. And a lot of folks don't know that. And this year we're trying to be a lot louder about that and really go out and show people the full power of the platform. But that's it in a nutshell. Really good tools for both players and organizers alike.
Brandon, what are you going to be using the money that you just raised? How do you plan to deploy that, and how will that impact Pickleheads in 2025 and going forward?
Yeah, great question. So our North Star is to improve players' experience on the court through technology. That's really where we're going as a company. And in order to do that, we have to continue to evolve the technology to meet players' needs and to even exceed players' needs, to show them unique formats and ways of playing that they didn't even know was possible. So the biggest cost center for us is just engineering, the horsepower to code up all of the tools and features that we need to get them out in market, to react to feedback, to iterate. And our biggest focus right now is doubling the size of the engineering team so that we can rapidly expand into, let's say, fixed partner formats, leagues, ladders. You can think about a minor league pickleball, major league pickleball style formats. All of that is being used in facilities, in and out of facilities all over the country. And we have a really amazing round robin tool, and now we just need to continue to build on top of it.
That's cool. Brandon, one of the things for me, I travel the country, and everywhere I go, I bring my paddles and I play. And I have had to, over the last, let's say, 3 years, some cities, it's Team Reach. Some cities, it's Meetup. Some city, it's a Facebook group. I get on Reddit, and I was like, where should I play? How does Pickleheads actually gather the information that you have, and how are you now doing more of the aggregating of things? So not only, because I see, for example, through Pickleheads, okay, I'm going to go play Bob Kildee Park in Camarillo, California when I visit my sister. But not all the time will it tell me, well, the best time to go is from 7 to 9. You should call this guy and do all that. How are you now growing that capability? Because I see that happening far more, where you don't just have a court and they have lights and there's 8 courts, but how you've now made that data a lot more robust and more valuable, frankly.
Josh, that's a great question. And, V1 of the company was purely a court finder, a directory. And we had this epiphany that, finding a court wasn't really all that exciting and didn't really solve the core need of players, which was to find a game, find people to play with. Because if you show up to a court, you don't have anyone to play with, it doesn't do you any good. And so what we designed, and the way we designed just the court finder was actually novel, that anybody could submit information. It was a bottoms-up model. You didn't have to be an ambassador or any sort of standing to submit information. It was almost like how Wikipedia operates. And because of that, we just got tons of input to basic court information. So then when it came time to say, okay, now how do we give people game information? We really used that the same programming and the same feature set to do that. So now anybody could say, hey, there's open play on these days, between these times. And then we even have a process where every 90 days it goes stale. And we prompt users to verify, like, hey, maybe the season changed and we're not playing indoors anymore. This open play is moved outdoors. And we have this process to keep that information fresh. And it's amazing. It's a lot of work to keep it up to date. But the reality is I can get off the plane, and we had a team retreat in Santa Rosa not too long ago, in California. Got off the plane, looked at the app. There was an open play the next morning. We showed up, and there were people there. That's a magical moment.
I get the sense that you and Max, your CEO, love pickleball. I know when you were in Dubai, you probably played more pickleball than you did networking with all the international folks. What's your history in pickleball? When did you get started?
Yeah, great question. And we'll be the first to admit we play too much pickleball on team retreats or at conferences.
Never, Brandon.
It's funny because pickleball is always kind of merged as like a networking thing. But like if you're just on the court the whole time, you end up not talking to anybody. So it's questionable how good for networking it is. But I got started in the pandemic time period, early 2021, like a lot of people. I was in Los Angeles. California had probably some of the strictest COVID restrictions. So the gym, yoga, all the stuff I used to do out of the window. And I found pickleball is just a fun way to go outside and meet some people, get some exercise, socialize responsibly. But I have a long tennis background, so I thought I was going to be really good at it. I was actually really bad. I lost my first couple games. I was hitting every shot in the net. But I figured out I could probably get better at it, and I started playing, once a month and then once a week. And then it wasn't until I moved to Scottsdale that I really started to play a lot. I mean, for obvious reasons, this is the Mecca here. There's amazing players, amazing open play. I was starting to review paddles for Pickleheads, so I was like, well, no one's going to listen to me if I'm a 3-0 player. Yeah. I've got to get better. And yeah, I think last summer I peaked, was playing really well. Then I had a baby, bought a house, got injured. So I've been kind of just getting back into it here in January this year.
Brandon, talk about how you actually gather the information, because you mentioned before bottoms up, and I could go on and just submit like on Wikipedia and say, hey, there's these courts. I happen to be in Palm Desert right now, and yeah, I play at Paradise Pickleball and they have open play. But my information is it's only going to be as accurate as Josh is, yeah. Which, as David knows about me, could be dubious. Yeah. So how are you now doing that to aggregate comprehensive and accurate information?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely a challenge. We have a whole team here that just reviews these submissions every day. And what they're trying to do is verify through other sources if that information is accurate. It's not always easy to do that. And so what we did last year, we signed a partnership with USA Pickleball to become their official court and game finder. And as you all probably know, USA Pickleball has this network of ambassadors that really are the ones that know the ins and outs of their area. And we created tooling in Pickleheads where USA Pickleball ambassadors could claim their status. And when they contribute information, we treat that as the record of truth. We know that information is accurate. And then we display on the site that this information has been verified by a USA Pickleball ambassador. And I think that was the missing piece early on, is we had a team that was researching, we had players that were contributing information, but we were missing that real on the ground domain knowledge. And by putting that piece in and having all three of those work together, I think now the information's really good. It's not perfect, of course, but it's getting better and better every day.
Are you able to keep up with the international growth? I mean, I see, Vietnam, they've got 500 courts that 6 months ago they didn't have. How's that working for you? Because you don't have USAP ambassadors in Vietnam or China or whatever.
Great question. Well, the short answer is no. We haven't been able to keep up with the growth just yet. 500 courts in Vietnam, and that's spectacular. But we also signed a partnership at the end of last year with the GPF, the Global Pickleball Federation, trying to do very much the same. It's a little bit different there, but what that gives us access to are, I think it's 52, 53 member nations now, and they're assisting us in getting that information. Now, it's a lot of these countries are a lot further behind the US. I was working with Rwanda recently. They have one court in the whole country. So that wasn't too hard to get that on Pickleheads. But then you look at Vietnam, and it's definitely challenging. But I think it's coming, right? The great thing about what we built is it can work anywhere. It's just a player submission, approval-based process. And we are getting submissions in Ireland, Italy, Singapore, all over the place. But I do think it's going to be more challenging. And those countries work, like in Australia, it works differently. Like pickleball is only played at like the club level. And people have to kind of approve the information and that people can play there. And it's just set up different than it is in the US.
Well, hopefully you can help break some of those barriers down too as you go. I mean, obviously that's been David's raison d'etre, if you will. A little high school French for you, Brandon.
Nice.
But that I see as a great. I've always felt that about your brand, if you will, for lack of a better term, that there's a great sense of community. Your logo and everything feels very welcoming. It is not stuffy. It is not corporate. And so it seems like you have sort of taken on that role of wanting to be an ambassador for the game itself and grow it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we found ourselves in a unique position where I think now we have almost 370,000 people that have signed up for Pickleheads, and these communities are popping up all over the country. And what we looked at this year is said, okay, if all these players are here in Pickleheads, how can we give them a better experience? Like, are we doing everything that we can? And the answer to that is I think there's a lot more we can do. A lot of our users, they've signed up once. They've used the Court Finder when they were maybe traveling a year ago. There's so much opportunity to take that player and get them connected in their local courts, to get them out on the courts, doing round robins, getting their rated, getting their player rating, doing fun stuff. So that's really where we're trying to turn our attention to this year.
So how do you envision providing value to pickleball facilities, be it an indoor facility or an outdoor facility or a Parks and Rec courts, next to the tennis courts? How do you provide value to facilities? Why should they pay attention to Pickleheads?
Yeah, great question. And I think you could look at it a couple ways. One is Pickleheads is a programming solution. And for facilities, what we're hearing a lot about programming, and for good reason. What we know is that when players use, especially the deep features of Pickleheads, I'm talking about the round robin tool and some of the rating integration tools we have, they have a better experience as a player than just showing up and doing unstructured open play and never tracking the rating. We know that. And we also know that when players have a better experience, they'll pay more money for either individual sessions, or if they're a recurring monthly member to a facility, they're going to stick around longer. You're going to have higher retention. And that's why everyone in the industry is talking about programming. And what we've observed is a lot of people talk about programming, but not everybody knows what it means to give good programming, how to implement it, how to execute it. And to us, programming is not, a printable draw of like 7 rounds of round robin like it's been the last couple decades probably. For us, programming is a really unique experience delivered through technology that matches people in unique ways with the right players so that every game they have is a fun, competitive game. And so I think for any facility that wants to drive more engagement, drive more revenue, decrease churn, I think programming is the obvious place to start. And if they're looking for something that can help power their programming, Pickleheads, of course, we hope is top of mind. Now, in addition to that, there's a lot of other software that'll do programming. I won't lie to anybody here. The one thing that we can add on top of that is our player network, right? You think about 800,000 people coming to the site looking for places to play every month. I think facilities have an opportunity to partner with us to be at the top of that list, to be discovered by players that might otherwise have stumbled onto the park or to the YMCA, to come into a facility and hopefully have a great experience, hopefully become a member. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to partner with facilities this year.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Brandon, because I've been involved in some facilities. David obviously had one of the very first ones anywhere in the country. I don't think a lot of facilities understand really the power of that supplemental income, if you will, the ancillary above the daily play, the court rental, the membership. For example, I'll be playing in a ladder event tonight where even though I bought the monthly membership, the place, I am going to spend another $20, and there are going to be
Yep.
40 players there. And I think a lot of facilities don't really look at it from that standpoint, where the value of partnering with a solution like yours, where suddenly you can make some real tangible gains. That if you're trying to do that all by yourself, so, put up a flyer and say, hey, we're going to do a round robin on Saturday, you're not going to get that same kind of performance, if you will, out of your own event.
Exactly. And, we see the worst thing that can happen is you ask for that incremental $20 and people are reluctant, they pay it, they go and they don't have a great experience.
Yeah.
And then you're really never going to be able to go back to those players and try and do something like that. So it's really critical to have something that out of the box is going to give people an awesome experience. And we've spent a lot of time over the last year trying to design that from the ground up, testing it out in the wild at facilities, at public parks. And I think we're really excited with what we have today. And this funding is going to help us just continue to build on that.
How does a facility integrate with you? I mean, do they contact you from your website? How do you see a facility working with you? Or is it all independent and they just log on and use the tools?
The great thing is we're set up to do exactly that. The tools are free to use currently. So any facility could log on, use the tools. And I have facilities reaching out to me all the time like, hey, I want to talk to you. We're using them. We're having a great time. These tools are amazing. Now that said, yes, part of our investment plan with this funding, we are investing in a community manager, somebody that can really be a resource to work hand in hand with facilities to properly onboard. Because, as much as we've tried to design our tools to be user friendly, there's a lot you can do, and it's unlikely that any person is going to look at it and kind of understand the full capabilities. And so we are going to be able to offer that to facilities and have a dedicated resource and a dedicated email alias where they can write into us. We haven't made that hire yet. So for now, they can talk to me. Be happy to talk to any facility. I always get energized kind of helping people think through things. But the magic is it can be used totally free of charge. And we actually have some facilities where, let's say they have a court reservation system. Their own community started adopting Pickleheads without even the facility. Because what you'll find is if I have a seamless booking experience, great. But if I don't have players to play with, the facility's not helping me, right? And so a lot of folks are using Pickleheads to then, let's say, book the courts at the facility and then use Pickleheads to get the game out there, to get the games full, or maybe even to do a little social round robin that might not even be endorsed by the facility. So it's pretty unique to see how that sort of bubbled up out in the wild.
Well, following up on that, so I am a facility. I'm using court reserve, pod play, plan, whatever it may be. I already have that established platform. If you know, my CRM is in there, et cetera, et cetera. How hard is it, and what does it take for me to actually integrate now to have Pickleheads become part of that tech stack, if you will, without screwing everything else up? For a very inelegant way of describing that.
It's no surprise we are having conversations with those parties, and I think an integration is inevitable at some point. It's just a question of when. I think right now, the way it works is people would reserve probably on the reservation platform, and then you just add the names into Pickleheads, and then you could use Pickleheads to power the programming. So it's pretty easy to do that, but I think long term, for sure, that in a seamless, integrated experience is where we're headed. Don't want to share too much yet, but we are actively looking at that, and I think it's inevitable at some point. I think what would be cool though is I think we can go a step further, right? We have seen in the news some integrations with programming software, but you could imagine with Pickleheads we could go probably further than that. Imagine somebody could discover the court on Pickleheads and then actually book a court at the private facility. Maybe they're not even a member, but they pay a higher tier. And you could use Pickleheads as a medium to actually fill underutilized court space. And I think that's something that, really we're in a unique position to do because we have all these players that are looking for courts. So we've been talking about it for a long time, and as these facilities start to open, it's starting to feel more and more like that the time could be getting close for something like that.
Yeah, golf now, perfect example. I'm a golfer, and
Yes,
that's
great
what they've
analogy.
done, build a very successful model. So just that is very interesting. I hadn't even thought of the fact of using that to get people in where they normally wouldn't be even a member, for example.
Exactly. Golf now, pickleball. I think that's a great analogy.
Talk to us about the overall world of facilities. You guys track how many new facilities come online in your system every month, et cetera. What are you seeing? Is there a particular area that's hot? What do you see going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did publish a report with the SFIA. It came out during nationals in November last year, and we're going to try and put that out every November. A really kind of a state of the union of pickleball, if you will. So we can, I'm sure, get that link out if people want to go deeper. But from a high level, it's interesting. We're hearing a lot about these indoor franchisee locations opening. And I had a reporter reach out recently that said, hey, I'm doing a whole story about indoor pickleball growth. That must be where all the activity is, all the growth is. Kind of assume that. And I said, our data doesn't suggest that. Like the largest bucket of growth is actually outdoor pickleball facilities, and public is still the largest base of pickleball facilities. So I would say the private is the fastest growing segment. I think we saw, it was close to maybe 80% year over year growth in just the private facilities, but it's a small sliver, under 10%. And the bigger story is it's not just private facilities. It's local municipalities that are opening. We're seeing some of these large mega outdoor facilities that are intended to be more like venues. You think about the Fort out in Florida. And so it's really a story of across the board. Like certain segments might get more attention because a lot of money's going there, but the infrastructure is being added across the board. We're seeing a lot of golf courses adding pickleball courts. We're seeing a lot of tennis facilities adding that mixed use pickleball infrastructure. And that is, something that I would encourage any facility owner to just be aware of, to not be so focused on any, on only maybe your most direct competitors, but any place to play pickleball could be competition, right? At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
For players.
Brandon, what do you when you look at sort of the range of facility types as well as the size? I know so many people, well, we got to have 12 courts, we got to have 18 courts, blah, blah, blah. I'm very intrigued by the notion of what I'm calling micro facilities where they may only have 4 courts. The Gotham Pickleball in Long Island City, for example, that John's design helped launch. They only have 4 courts. It's automated. Pickle Pop in Santa Monica, California.
Yep.
Based on your data, do you see a broad range? Do you see that we're going to start seeing maybe in those real estate challenge markets like a New York City, LA and stuff where we might get some more of these smaller facilities? What is your sort of read on just the ecosystem, if you will, of facilities?
Yeah, absolutely. So the average number of courts per facility is 4.3.
Oh.
So we are kind of, if you look across everything, now that could be a church with just 1 court. And then you've got the Fort, with 43 courts. So there's a broad range, but the average is just over 4. And we did some analysis in the last 2 reports where we looked at the coverage of dedicated pickleball facilities. So we're not talking about temporary lines or nets, but dedicated courts relative to population. Like we don't have good participation data at the city level. SFIA does a great job kind of nationally and regionally. But if we just assume that at this point, population is a good enough proxy for participation, then we can start to understand how well is a given city or area meeting the demand for pickleball. And when you look at New York and LA, the metropolitan areas, they are 98% below average in terms of the dedicated courts per 10,000 residents was the metric we used. And I lived in LA. I started playing in LA, so I know that. And I can bridge the gap between that data and what it's like to actually experience that as a player. And it's really challenging. And I think at the end of the day, pickleball is going to come down to just real estate. That's your biggest line item. And I think for sure that model of smaller, micro, more fluid, flexible, maybe even automated facilities. I know pod play started as, making automated ping pong facilities. I think you're going to see a lot more of that for the simple reason that we're just not coming close to meeting demand with the way things have been going, with trying to build these large public works projects or these big, even an 8 to 12 court in Santa Monica. I mean, where are you going to put something like that?
Yeah.
So I would say
My
yes.
my experience running a four-court facility, our real estate costs weren't our biggest concern because we were part of our own warehouse, but staffing was our next level. And we felt that four courts took the same staffing level that 6 or 8 courts might have. So there's an economic incentive to find that sort of best balance between staffing levels and number of courts. So depending upon if you're going automated or not, depending upon, if real estate is a huge line item in your budget. But we found that four-court facility was a tough one to justify from a staffing level.
Interesting. Yeah, I can
Brandon,
see
let me
that.
ask you this: in terms of if you're, because we are the International Association of Pickleball Facilities, I assume people ask you all the time, what do I need to do to succeed in this business? What is the secret sauce? Because you go all over the country, you play. If you had, some overall advice for facility operators, some of the things you really have to do, whether that is the way you implement technology, maximizing the experience you talked about. To me, you hit it on the head. If you don't deliver a
Yeah.
good experience, I don't care how good your courts and lighting are. What are some of those things you tell people when they ask you for advice?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll sound like a broken record, but really going back to that on-court experience for players. And I think I would encourage every facility owner to hear the word programming, but really take it to heart and not engage in what I would call check the box programming, which is like you're doing it because somebody told you need to do it, but really think about why is everybody talking about programming? And the reason is because it gives people or players a better experience than what they're accustomed to. And I think what we've observed is 5 years ago, and part of the magic of pickleball really is the open play. There's really not another sport where you have that kind of concept. And I think that's what allowed pickleball to grow so exponentially. But 5 years ago, everyone was kind of the same skill level. I'm overgeneralizing here. But what we've observed and what we would call level divergence is over 5 years now, from pandemic till 2025, you have all these cohorts of players that are just at vastly different skill levels. You got people that have been playing every day from the dawn of the pandemic. And having those people just show up at a public park and engage in open play is not really a great experience anymore because it's leading to long wait times and bad behaviors. I don't want to play with you, or judging you because of the type of paddle you're putting in the rack. And the reason people are turning to facilities is because they want a better experience than that. But it's not enough to just offer reservable court space and say, okay, we don't have to go to open play. You can just reserve courts here. It has to go a step further than that, I think. And you think about a round robin where you've got mixed skill levels, but the app is seeding players by their rating, by Duper, by the coach assigned rating that they have. And then every round, it's dynamically moving people. That's the type of thing that is going to guarantee that every person who participates in that has a good experience, a good game. And I would encourage every facility owner to ask themselves the question is, are the people playing here having a good experience? Are they getting good games in? And if the answer is open play and then that's working, then great, keep doing that. But I would venture to guess that you need to go a step further than that. And mix it up too, because anyone could go to the public park and go to open play, but it's really they're coming to facilities for that unique experience, those formats of round robins they've never heard before. And it's hard, right? I mean, we're still evolving as an industry and figuring it all out, but I hope we can play a small part in that.
Yeah. And bottom line being, I know for me, more and more, if I have two choices in the neighborhood, one of them is a bad experience, the people are rude, or the play is all that, versus the other place. Well, now that we have competition, suddenly I have a choice, and I am not going to brand A if brand B is that better experience.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yep. So how'd you guys come up with the company name of Pickleheads?
Well, we come from a background of kind of website SEO guys to some extent. And so starting out, we wanted a domain that was available that kind of made sense in context. And funny enough, Max, who's my co-founder, and David, obviously you met him, we were looking at a lot of things that were available, things that like, gopickle.com or playpickle.com. And some of those are obviously taken now. But Pickleheads was the one that jumped out because I immediately felt it was more than just a website. Like it meant something. It meant like a community, or it had a meaning of people that, we thought about like Grateful Dead, like the Deadheads. It's so funny how we thought about things years ago that don't make any sense now. But years ago, we were like, pickleball's an older demographic.
Sure.
And so like maybe Grateful Dead, Deadheads, maybe that's going to have some meaning. Now, of course, a bunch of young people are playing has changed. But most of all, we really wanted something that could live beyond just a website URL, that could be a community and could make sense for people that, you're joining something. You are a picklehead. You love playing. You love being part of the community. And I think that's probably one of the best decisions we ever made because we've just expanded so far beyond just a website, right? We've got the community. We've got the app. We're trying to do a lot of stuff on court. We maybe even do Pickleheads events this year, which maybe we can talk about at a later time. But that's kind of how I came up with, and it's easy to say. I come from a consumer or CPG background, so did a lot of, you want a brand that is easy to say. It's recognizable. And we did some fun stuff with the logo, and the rest is history.
Yeah, no, it's a great fun concept, and it's trademarkable.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and it's funny because David, with his business, there's a plug for your newsletter. David publishes the Business of Pickleball newsletter, which is the authority on all things business pickleball. And I love, David, how you track like the latest trademarks. And it's fun to see all the variations on that. But Pickleheads is already taken.
Yeah. And by the way, that newsletter is in a league of its own. We all got copies of it at Dubai, and I could just see people reading it, and you guys have really gone above and beyond. So if anyone is listening that is not subscribed to it, I would consider it a must-have if anyone's operating in the so-called business of pickleball.
Thank you, Brandon.
Brandon, as we wind it down, looking at the future then, you talked about some of the things you'd like to do. Bigger picture, how far can you go? What can you do? To me, one of the magic of pickleball is that it's still an analog game. How do you grow technology to be of service to the game without technology becoming too dominant? Again, back to golf. Too many people spend so much time on their rangefinder, on their phone and data and TrackMan, that I think it's taken away a lot of the experience of golf or overshadowed it. How do you grow while not doing that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think a lot of people challenge what we're doing and say, well, pickleball doesn't need technology or organization. It is all about the magic of open play, and you just show up and you play. And I think the way we look at it is we don't want any of that to go away. We want what we're providing to just be a little bit of structure and a little bit of facilitation through technology that allows the magic of pickleball to grow and evolve for many decades into the future. And that's really all that we're trying to do. And I think we look at pickleball as in this world of the digital world where we're all at home, working remote, not seeing people all day. The magic of pickleball is you get to break all that and you get to actually get out on the court and have fun with people in real life. And I always looked at Pickleheads as a way to get people, maybe from the couch onto the court. To steal a term that I think we heard from AARP, they use that term. But that's what we're trying to do. And I think if we can give people really amazing tools to organize events, and then for players, really amazing tools to discover events, to get maybe a push notification that there's a round robin going on tonight. And maybe you otherwise would have just, looked at social media or hung out at home. Now you're in the car heading to a round robin. I think we can play a role that will generally get more people out in the fresh air having fun than on their phones.
Right on. Dave, anything else?
Well, I look forward to playing you a couple games in pickleball the next time we meet, Brandon.
I know. I don't know if we got to play. I think I was
We
probably
didn't in Dubai, but maybe when we're in Scottsdale.
next time. Yeah. When are you guys coming out?
April 28th and 29th is when we're scheduled.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and for those who don't know, yeah, and again, another plug, Brandon. I am nothing if not a carnival barker here. We will be doing the first IAPF regional meetup. We're going to be touring a couple of facilities. We will have content. Hopefully, you can come and be a part of that. We can share more, introduce us. So, go to pickleballfacilities.org. Sign up for membership. Sign up for our newsletter, free. And we'll keep people posted. But hopefully we can bring a bunch of people together when we're in Scottsdale, February 28th, 20, or March 28th, 29th. Is that right? Did I get it wrong? Now
April
April,
28th.
March, whatever. Look on our website.
It's gonna be warm.
It'll be
Hopefully not
warm.
too hot.
It'll be great. David's
It'll be nice,
planning
yeah.
great visits. So I just want to encourage people to come down because that's part of what we're trying to grow as well, Brandon. We're so grateful that you are coming on this journey with us here, that we're all in this together.
No, absolutely. And I would love to be a part of that. We could shoot some content. We can put some stuff in the newsletter that David and Josh were out in Scottsdale and we were touring facilities. And if anyone reading this is a facility owner, like there's probably some cool stuff we could do. So excited.
Right on. Right
Very
on.
good.
Well, Brandon Mackie, Pickleheads, check them out, use them. And we're just so grateful, and it's so great to work with you, and we look forward to continuing on the journey together. Thanks for joining us.
Likewise. Thanks, guys. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Brandon.